to Burnt Bridge. I'm your host, Bridget Price. Some of you may know me from TikTok as Sober Bridge, some of you may not. So I'm Bridget, I'm 29, and I'm a raging alcoholic, but I have been sober for 3 years. I started my TikTok when I was around 60 days sober, basically as an accountability thing for me, but also then it kind of morphed and evolved into awareness that alcoholism doesn't necessarily just look like an old dude brewing coffee at an AA meeting. It can look like anything, anywhere. Absolutely hate to break this to the world, but anyone can be an alcoholic. Good luck. Good luck, Charlie. I certainly am, and for a really long time, I didn't think that I could be because of my age, because of any number of things. I just didn't think that that was my journey. And what they don't tell you about alcoholism is like you're not born knowing it. Like I always looked at addicts and alcoholics before and I was like, yeah, they must just like know inherently that that's what they are. That wasn't my experience. I never woke up one day and was like, "Oh, well, I guess that's me now." Because I was able to drink normally for a long time, or normally for a long time, and then you cross the line one day and you've always been able to do this thing, but now all of a sudden you can't. And it's very tricky. It's very hard. And I mean, just navigating sobriety in general is the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. And I like to talk and I like to listen to others. And honestly, listening to other people who walks the path before me is the only reason I'm sober today. And so I wanted to hopefully be able to give that to someone else. And that's why I started my TikTok. Um, as for this podcast, here's the plan. Um, we're going to have guests, we're going to have segments. I want to do a segment called Rock Bottom and Pink Cloud, which, if you're not familiar, a lot of people know what rock bottom is, obviously. I've had many of them. But a pink cloud in recovery is like when you first get sober, sometimes like you experience a few months of just like real bliss. And then that like wears off over time. But rock bottom and pink cloud of the week, I'll go ahead and just give you an example of what that'll look like with my real life. And this week, rock bottom of this week is I'm poor and I always have been. Hate that for me, literally hate that for me. Pink cloud of this week is that this week I got back from my first all-inclusive vacation as a sober person. I went with my boyfriend. It was literally the time of my life. Yeah, it was just fucking incredible. I loved it so much. So we're gonna do segments like that. We're gonna do segments where we talk about things in the recovery world that are great and things that aren't so great. For instance, I'll start with my pitch to you all. Okay, listen, I'll tell you I'm an alcoholic. I'll tell anyone on the street I'm an alcoholic. I don't care. I would like to have an identification card that says I'm an alcoholic. I don't drink, not for to save money or whatever. I don't drink because if I drank, you'd never see me again. I want an ID card that says that so that I can go to a restaurant or to a bar, present my ID, and get 50% off of a mocktail because mocktail prices are absurd. Why are they the same prices as a cocktail? It doesn't make any sense to me. It's juice. Someone get on that. Maybe it has to be me. I'll happily do it. Anyway, segments like that. I also want to dedicate each one of the episodes to a listener who is having a sobriety milestone of some sort. So please, in the comments, if you have a sobriety milestone coming up, let me know. And we'll dedicate an episode to you. We're going to have lots of fun segments like that, lots of fun guests. I've got some in the works right now. And yes, we're also going to talk about like all my stories, but in this episode, I'm just going to give like a brief overview of who I am and what my story is, and then we'll kind of get into the war stories later on. So I'll start with that, I guess. The first time I ever drank alcohol was 14 or 15, I can't remember, but my whole life up to that point, I'd hyper identified with the fact that I was a super anxious person. I had OCD as a child. Really bad generalized anxiety disorder, couldn't really leave the house, like lots of things. Always very, very identified with just being an anxious person. When I tried alcohol for the first time, was the first time in my life that those voices got quiet. And I said to myself, I'd like to do this as much as I possibly can. Thank you so much. And that's what I proceeded to do through high school and college. I, drink super heavily, but was able to still like function, go to school, go to work, all those things, maintain friendships, stuff like that. And then my senior year of college was when I started drinking every single day, and I started using it to like basically as a sleep aid, because my thoughts wouldn't let me sleep. So I just drink until I passed out, basically. That's when I started that. Then I graduated and I kept moving the goalposts for myself. I was like, okay, when I get a job, that's when I'll stop drinking. Okay, I hate this job. When I quit this job, I'll stop drinking. Okay, don't like this job either. When I move in with my boyfriend, I'll stop drinking. When I move out of Texas, I'll stop drinking. When this phase of my life is a little easier, I'll stop drinking. I was consistently moving the goalposts, consistently never changing my drinking habits, and they just kept getting worse. And then it all kind of came to a head with COVID, got laid off, started drinking all day, every day, experiencing withdrawals for the first time. Big blow up happened. I ended up going to a mental health facility, and I thought that they were just going to be like, you're so depressed. Stop. Here's some meds. And instead, they said, you're in severe withdrawal and you need to stay here for 7 to 10 days. And I was like, I'm actually not interested in that. Thank you so much. And they were like, but it is, you actually do need to do that. I was like, great. I'm going to actually go home though, like for a little bit and just like chill and then I'll come back. And they're like, no. And I was like, oh, okay, but I am. I actually did end up going back, but not before I went home and drank more. That's for sure. So that started my first series of being institutionalized. And I thought I was just going to be able to, when they told me I was an alcoholic, I was like, great, I just won't drink anymore. And they're like, okay, what's your plan? And I was like, I'm just not going to drink. What do you mean? And they're like, that's usually doesn't work. And I was like, well, you guys don't know me, so crazy for you to just like assume that about me. Um, it turns out they were right. I ended up going back to the same exact place about a month later when I inevitably relapsed and, couldn't stop drinking once again. And that set forth a sequence of events where I ended up going to detox and the mental institution like 7 to 10 times. I'm not really even sure how many times. And then eventually full blown rehab 3 separate times until April 28th of 2022 when I took my last sip of alcohol and went to rehab for the final time. And it's been over 3 years since that fateful day. And my life has gotten bigger and more wonderful. 3 years ago, I was in a 375 square foot, like mobile home, essentially. No job, not a friend to be found, not a dollar in my pocket. Literally, no, I had nothing. I'd lost everything I ever had in my life. Um, and today, I have a great job. I have so many wonderful friends. I have a wonderful boyfriend. I have my dog that I love more than anything. I just have I'm so rich in so many ways. I'm still very poor monetarily, but I am so rich in the ways that matter to me. And that is 100% to do with the fact that I got sober. I used to think that being sober meant giving up fun for the rest of your life, but in reality, I've had more fun in the last 3 years. Turns out not drinking a depressant every day leads to more fun? Question mark? Strange. I used to think sober people were the lamest people out there. I was like, why do you suck so bad? Why are you making the active choice to not drink? Couldn't be me. Turns out they were onto something. I don't know what to tell you. I really don't. But that's me. That's a little bit about me. Um, and we'll just get to know each other over the course of this. This is obviously going to be a shorter episode, like just like an intro to the pod. But comment what things you want me to talk about, sobriety or otherwise. We'll talk about sober dating and sobriety. You know, how I ate so much the first 6 months that I got sober. It was alarming to most, I'm sure. I mean, we'll cover everything, and I'm an open book. So if you guys have any questions or whatever, I'm happy to answer them. But I'm really excited to start this. I love to talk. That's my favorite activity, and I love to talk about recovery because it's my favorite thing because it saved my life and I wouldn't be here without it. Anyways, love you guys. My burnt babes.